There are some things we see that never leave us. Maybe it's a strange light on an empty road. Maybe it's the feeling that something out there is watching, waiting for you to look back. Tonight's story isn't about what's hiding in the dark. It's about what hides inside the light. This is the black box. If you're listening alone, you might want to turn on a light, but be careful. Sometimes that's all it takes for it to find you again. I used to work for an independent towing company out near St. Cloud, Minnesota. We covered a lot of the back roads, Wilmer, Glenwood, Spicer, places. Most people only drive through once and forget immediately. But for me, those empty miles were everything. I knew every cracked stretch of asphalt, every field that turned gold in the summer and gray in the winter, every road sign that rattled in the wind. That night, I got a call about an old Volkswagen Beetle that had apparently crashed into a stop sign along County Road 32. Nothing unusual. Abandoned wrecks were part of the job. But what stuck out was the dispatcher's voice. He sounded off. He paused too long before reading me the coordinates, as if double-checking something that didn't quite make sense. It was just after 9 when I rolled out. The rain had started again, the kind that falls in thin silver sheets, whispering against the windshield instead of slapping it. I turned off the radio halfway through the drive. The static kept bleeding through the songs, and every time I switched frequencies, I thought I heard a whisper underneath the noise, like someone saying my name. County 32 was dead quiet when I got there. No lights, no other cars, just me, and the wet gravel crunching under my tires. I slowed down when I saw the reflection of metal up ahead, something old and rusted, sitting in the ditch. My floodlights caught the outline of the Beetle. Its front bumper was folded like tin. But then I noticed something strange. There was a stop sign. I swear to you, there had never been one on that stretch before. I'd driven this road dozens of times, even in daylight, and it had always been a straight run through farmland. There was no crossroad, no intersection, no reason for a stop sign to exist there. And yet, there it was, freshly planted, its red paint glossy and new wet from the rain. The Beetle was smashed against it, as if someone had driven full speed into it on purpose. I parked my truck, left the engine running, and stepped out. The smell of rain and old metal hit me. I started walking toward the wreck, the beam from my flashlight catching details as I went. The car looked ancient rust, creeping up the wheel wells, moss growing where rubber met metal. The tires were half rotted, the interior gutted. It hadn't been driven in years. There was no way it could have crashed tonight. I knelt beside the front wheel, tracing my fingers across the mud. No fresh tread marks, no skid lines, no sign of another vehicle anywhere. The whole scene looked staged, like someone had dragged the Beetle here and planted the stop sign just to make it look like an accident. My stomach tightened. I told myself it was just local kids screwing around a prank maybe. Still, I wanted to get the job done fast. I turned toward the truck to grab my chains and froze. There were people standing by the roadside, 5 of them, just far enough that the rain blurred their faces, but close enough for me to see their outlines. They weren't moving. They weren't talking. They were just standing there, staring up at the flashing amber light on my truck. At first, I thought maybe they were witnesses or maybe even the ones who'd called it in. But the longer I watched, the less sense it made. They were different ages. One looked like a teenage girl, another a man in his 60s, but they all had the same expression, slack-jawed, vacant. their heads tilted slightly back as they watched the light pulse over them. Every flash made their eyes glint black. I swallowed hard and called out, "Hey, you folks, okay, nothing. Not even a blink." They just breathed, all together, in the same rhythm. A wet gust of wind pushed against me, and the amber light kept spinning, flash dark, flash dark. Each time it blinked, I thought I saw them a little closer. But when I blinked again, they were still in the same spot. That kind of thing, it messes with you out here in the middle of nowhere. I forced myself to look away, get back to the beetle. My hands were shaking when I hooked the winch chain under the chassis. The metal creaked, echoing out into the dark fields. And that's when I heard it a whisper, soft but close. It came from behind me, just above the sound of the rain. "Look at me, look at me." The voice wasn't loud. It was fragile, almost pleading. But it crawled through the rain, like a whisper carried by the wind. My heart thudded, once hard enough to make me dizzy. I spun around with my flashlight. The beam cut through the rain, catching wet shapes and trees. But no one was there. The 5 people I'd seen by the road were gone. The night had swallowed them. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the hum of my truck engine and the slow patter of rain hitting metal. I told myself I was overtired, that maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. That's what fear does. It writes things into the dark. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I stepped backward toward the truck, never taking my eyes off the beetle. The stop sign's reflection kept flickering in the wet asphalt like a pulse. I reached for the door handle, then froze again. There was movement at the edge of the light. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, slow and deliberate. The rain ran down their face like a curtain masking everything, but their eyes black shining and fixed on the flashing beacon on my roof. She looked like a middle-aged woman, maybe 40. Her hair clung to her skin, and her mouth hung open slightly, as if she was silently breathing in rhythm with the light. Then she whispered again, louder this time, "Look at me." And for some reason I did. I don't know why. I could have run. I should have run. But my body didn't listen. Something in her tone pinned me in place, like an animal caught in headlights. My flashlight trembled in my grip as she stared through me, eyes unblinking. She didn't move closer. She didn't have to. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement, 2 more figures, stepping out from behind the beetle. A man and a young girl. They moved strangely uncoordinated, like puppets that had forgotten how to walk. My mouth went dry. "Hey," I tried again, my voice cracking. "You need to stay back, okay? I'll call someone. Just don't come any closer." They didn't respond. Their heads twitched slightly toward me, but their eyes stayed on the light. All 3 of them, now faces turned upward, pupils, dilated mouths open. The woman lifted her hand slowly and pointed toward the truck's beacon. Her lips moved, but the sound that came out wasn't words. It was a wet, rhythmic clicking noise, steady and mechanical. Click, click, click. I took a step back. Then I realized something that made my stomach twist. They weren't the only ones. There were others emerging from the dark field beyond the road. 5, 6, maybe more. Dozens of them, all walking towards the flashing light in perfect silent unison. The rain glistened on their faces, their eyes black and reflective like oil. Every pulse of amber light revealed new faces behind them. Men, women, even a child, holding what looked like a broken flashlight, all of them clicking softly in time with the beacon. I stumbled backward until I hit the side of my truck. My hand fumbled for the door handle, but it was slick with rain. The woman's voice came again, closer now. "Don't stop the light." That was the last thing I remember before they rushed me. Hands grabbed at my arms, and jacket cold and desperate. I felt nails dig into my skin, breath hot and sour against my neck. They didn't make a sound, not a scream or a word, just that constant mechanical clicking. One of them pressed my face sideways against the truck window. I could see my own reflection flashing in rhythm, with the warning light white, then shadow, then white again. My mouth was open. I realized I was clicking too. Somewhere behind the chaos, I heard another sound, a low mechanical whir, followed by a sharp metallic snap. The woman was holding something. It looked like an old box camera, black square, with a crank on one side. She pointed it at me, her face lit from beneath by a dull yellow glow. Then she started turning the crank. Click, click, click. Every rotation sent a blinding flash through my skull. The light didn't just blind me, it filled me. I felt it inside my head, behind my eyes and my teeth. The world stuttered, with every burst freezing between frames, like someone was cutting and splicing reality itself. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could do was watch the light. It was warm and suffocating at the same time, like being submerged in boiling honey. My vision blurred. I felt my knees buckle. Somewhere deep inside, my mind was screaming, look away, but it was too late. The flashes grew faster, the clicking louder. Each pulse erased a piece of me, my name, my job, my reason for being there. I couldn't even remember what road I was on. Then everything went dark. The last thing I felt was the cold ground against my cheek and the rain running into my open mouth. When I woke up, it was daylight. When I woke up, I was lying face down on the side of the road. The sky was a pale gray, the kind that never seems to brighten, no matter how late in the morning it gets. My head was pounding. My mouth tasted like rust. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Just the smell of wet earth and the faint hum of something metallic nearby. Then I saw my truck. It was still idling, engine rumbling softly. The amber light on the roof was off. The Beetle was gone. No tire marks, no drag lines, no footprints, just the dented stop sign and the faint shape of where the car had been pressed into the mud. I sat there for a long time, trying to remember what had happened. But every time I reached for a thought, it slipped away like water through my fingers. My mind felt scraped clean. Eventually I stood up. My legs shook. My hands were trembling so badly, I dropped my phone twice before I could even check the screen. No signal. I climbed into the truck and just sat there, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes looked darker somehow. The whites weren't white anymore. They were tinted gray, like someone had smudged ash across them. When I blinked, I could still see the light, the afterimage of that box camera, flickering against the inside of my eyelids. Click, flash, click, flash. I drove back to town on autopilot. I didn't even remember the road, just stretches of road that looked familiar but wrong, like the world had been rearranged while I was gone. By the time I reached the lot, my boss was waiting. He looked me up and down. "Jesus, Mark, you look like hell. Where's the tow?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out, just a rasp of air. He frowned. "You okay?" I nodded. Lied. Car wasn't there when I got there. Maybe a false report. He sighed. "All right, go home, get some sleep." That's what I did. I went home, took a shower, and stood under the water, until it ran cold. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I noticed something else. My pupils didn't react to light. The bulb above me flickered once, just once, and my heart leapt. For that brief second of strobe warmth spread through my chest like someone had lit a match inside me. I could feel the faintest echo of pleasure, a strange pulse that made me want to see it again. So I turned the light off, then on, then off, then on. Each flicker sent a wave through my body, the same rhythm, the same clicking pulse that had held me captive in the dark. Click, flash, click, flash. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, doing that, my breath growing shallow, my fingers twitching on the switch like a junkie hitting a vein. It wasn't until my phone buzzed that I stopped. It was the police. They wanted to ask about the incident. Someone had reported seeing a man passed out near County 32 in the early hours. My truck had been logged on the dash cam of a passing semi. When I got to the station, I told them what I could, or rather, what I thought they'd believe. I said I'd gone out for a tow, found the scene empty, and blacked out from exhaustion. No mention of the people, or the woman, or that clicking box. The officer, a tall guy with a wedding ring and tired eyes, scribbled notes while I spoke. Then he asked a question that made my blood run cold. "Did you see the lights?" I froze. "What lights?" He tapped his pen against the table. "We've been getting reports from that stretch for months. Strange lights. People stopping their cars in the middle of the road, just staring. Happened again last week. Couple found standing in the rain, couldn't explain why they were there." He gave me a long look. "You sure you don't remember anything?" I nodded, my throat dry. He didn't push. He just sighed and closed the file. "All right, Mark. Go get some rest. And stay away from that road." I left the station shaking. I told myself I'd forget about it, that I'd move on. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of that box. Saw faces frozen mid-breath, eyes wide and shining. And in between the flashes, just for an instant, I thought I saw something else. A shape standing behind them, too tall to be human, watching. The next morning, I woke to the sound of sirens. Police, ambulance, fire trucks, all screaming past my window. I walked outside and watched the lights fade down the highway. And I swear to you, for the first time in my life, I smiled. I could feel the warmth of those lights in my chest, like they were calling to me. Click, flash, click, flash. Something inside me had changed. I didn't go back to work after that. At first, I told myself it was just exhaustion trauma, maybe. My boss didn't question it much. He'd seen enough roadside horrors to understand when someone needed time off. But this wasn't fatigue. Not really. It was something else. Something living inside my head. For the first few days, I tried to ignore it. I kept the curtains drawn, unplugged, the TV left, the lights off. I thought the darkness would help me rest. But that didn't work. The silence was unbearable. My thoughts felt too loud. And every so often when I blinked, I'd still see that flicker bright white, burning, like the memory of a camera flash that refused to fade. On the third day, I gave in. I went to the kitchen and flipped the light switch. Just once. Click. That same wave of warmth flooded through me. It felt almost like relief, or maybe release. Like a deep itch finally being scratched. My heart slowed. My shoulders relaxed. So I did it again. And again. And again. On. Off. On. Off. By the 10th click, I was breathing heavy. My hand shook. I could feel sweat dripping down my temple, but I didn't care. The light wasn't blinding anymore. It was beautiful, rhythmic, safe. When I finally stopped, I felt hollow, like I'd been holding my breath too long and let it all out at once. That night, I dreamed of the woman. She was standing at the end of my bed, soaked to the bone, her head tilted to one side. The rain was still running down her face, though there was no sound, no storm, no wind, no movement. Just her lips trembling slightly. Look at me. When I woke up, it was dawn. My lamp was on, and my hand was still resting on the switch. I started noticing little things after that. Small slips. I'd leave the tap running, forget where I put my keys. I'd pour coffee and then stare at it for 10 minutes without taking a sip. Sometimes I'd start a sentence and forget what I was trying to say halfway through. The worst part was when I'd catch my reflection in the window. My eyes didn't look right anymore. The color had drained from them, leaving this pale, glassy sheen. Sometimes, if I stared long enough, I could swear I saw the faintest pulse of light behind them, like something small was flickering inside me. The police called again on Friday. They said there'd been another report, someone found standing on the same stretch of County 32, staring into oncoming headlights. A man in his 50s, local farmer. When they pulled him off the road, he fought them, screaming about the beautiful lights. I hung up before they could ask me anything. I knew it was connected. I knew she had done something to me, but I didn't know what. The next night, I woke up to flashing lights outside my window. Red and blue this time, an ambulance a few streets over. I went to the window without thinking, my heart racing. The instant I saw those strobes, that warmth came rushing back. My entire body trembled. My pulse synced with the lights. Each flash felt like a heartbeat, every pause like an inhale. I stood there for 10 minutes, just watching, completely still. When the sirens finally faded, I sank to the floor, breathless. My hands were shaking, and there were tears in my eyes. I didn't even know why. I wasn't scared anymore. I was craving it. The next day, I found my old flashlight in the drawer. I sat on the couch and clicked it on and off, watching the circle of light bloom and vanish on the wall. Click, flash, click, flash. Every time it blinked, I saw her face. Just for an instant, her gray eyes, her wet hair, her lips twisting in a half smile. At some point, I realized I'd been doing it for hours. My hand was cramped, my knuckles white. My thumb throbbed from the pressure. I turned the flashlight off and tried to focus on something else. Anything else. I picked up a book, tried to read, but the letters blurred together. I couldn't even remember how to follow the words. Then I caught myself whispering it under my breath. Click, flash, over and over. By nightfall, I was pacing. I couldn't stand the quiet anymore. I needed it. That pulse, that warmth, that light. I grabbed my car keys and drove aimlessly through town, chasing the glow of every traffic light and neon sign. Each one hit me like a fix. Red, yellow, green, they all meant nothing. I just wanted the flash. I passed the gas station and saw a cruiser parked outside its lights, rotating lazily in the dark. I pulled over to the shoulder and just watched. I don't know how long I sat there. At some point, the officer noticed me and came over. He knocked on my window, and the sudden movement snapped me out of it. I must have looked deranged, eyes wide, hands gripping the wheel tight. "You all right, buddy?" he asked. I couldn't answer. I just stared at the reflection of his lights on my windshield. They were so beautiful. That night, I realized what I had to do. If the lights could make me feel alive again, maybe they could make me whole. Maybe they could bring me closer to whatever that woman had seen. So I waited until after midnight, packed a flashlight, and drove back toward County 32, toward the stop sign that wasn't supposed to exist, and the dark field beyond it. I didn't plan on going back there. At least that's what I told myself. But by the time I realized what I was doing, I was already halfway down the county road headlights, cutting through the fog. The rain had started again, thin, relentless. The wipers kept time like a metronome. The further I drove, the less I recognized. The road felt longer, somehow emptier. The trees leaned closer to the shoulders, their branches glistening in the mist, like fingers reaching out. Every few miles, I thought I saw movement in the ditch, a pale blur, a hint of shape. But when I looked directly, there was nothing. I turned off the radio. The silence was louder than the static. When I reached the spot, my stomach sank. The stop sign was gone. No post, no hole in the ground, no trace it had ever been there. And yet, the mud still carried tire ruts from where my truck had parked. The ditch still bore the faint imprint of the Beetle's frame. I stepped out into the rain, flashlight in hand. The beam cut a thin tunnel of light through the mist. I could smell the same mixture of wet metal and rot that had filled the air that night. My boots sank into the soft earth as I walked toward the empty space. I don't know what I expected. Maybe closure, maybe answers. Instead, I found something worse. Half buried in the mud, just where the Beetle's front wheels had been, was a box. It was small, square, and black. Its edges rusted, its surface slick with rain. There was a crank on one side, a lens on the front. I knew exactly what it was. The same box that woman had held. For a moment, I just stared at it. The logical part of my brain screamed to leave it, to get back in the truck and drive until the gas ran out. But curiosity, or something pretending to be curiosity, kept me there. I knelt down. My fingers brushed against the cold metal. The moment I touched it, warmth bloomed through my hand. Not physical warmth, but something deeper, like being seen. Like something inside the box had recognized me. I could hear it before I even turned the crank. Click. A soft, steady sound, too faint to be real, but too rhythmic to be imagined. Click, click, click. My breathing matched it without me realizing. Each inhale and exhale fell in sync with the pulse of that noise. And then, faint at first, like a voice underwater, I heard something whisper from the trees. Look at me. The flashlight flickered. The rain fell harder. I froze. When I turned, the beam caught something white between the trees, a hand pale and still pressed against the bark. Then another. Then another. Figures began to emerge one by one from the darkness. Faces I recognized. The same 5 from before. The same glassy eyes, the same slack jaws. But there were more now. 10, maybe 12. All ages, all shapes. Their clothes were soaked, their skin faintly luminous under the flashlight beam. And every one of them was staring at me. The woman was among them. She stepped forward, her hair plastered to her face, her lips blue from the cold. Her eyes caught the light and reflected it back at me like mirrors. You came back, she said softly. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. She smiled slowly, unnaturally. Her teeth were too many, too even. It calls to you now, doesn't it? I wanted to move, to back away, but my body refused. I could feel the pulse of the box in my hand, quickening. Click, 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 click. She tilted her head. You were chosen the moment you looked. It lives in you now. You see it, don't you? The light behind the dark. My heart hammered. What are you? Her smile widened. We're what's left when you stop looking away. The others began to hum low and soft, almost musical. The sound vibrated through the rain through my bones. The air shimmered around them, bending like heat on asphalt. Then I realized what I was seeing. The light wasn't shining on them. It was shining from them. Pale beams leaked from their eyes, their mouths, their fingertips flickering in rhythm with the box's clicks. The rain caught each pulse like 1,000 mirrors, scattering it in every direction. I dropped the box. It hit the mud with a hollow thud. The clicking stopped, but the light didn't. The woman leaned closer, her face inches from mine. Her breath smelled like wet metal and ozone. "You can't leave it behind," she whispered. "It's inside you now." I stumbled backward. My boot slipped, and I fell hard into the ditch. When I looked up again, they were gone. No figures, no light, no sound but the rain. I stayed there for a long time, staring at the place where the box had fallen. It was gone too. Only a shallow impression in the mud remained. When I finally stood and looked back toward the road, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the distance, faint through the fog, the stop sign was standing again, and painted across its red face in dripping white letters was a single word: home. I don't remember driving home that night. I only remember the light, the stop sign, glowing faintly behind me in the fog, the word home bleeding white through the dark. I must have stared at it for minutes before leaving. The next thing I knew, it was morning, and I was sitting in my truck in my driveway, the engine still running. Something was wrong with the world. After that, everything looked off. The sky was too bright, shadows too sharp. And at night, even the smallest light, an LED, a phone screen, the blink of my alarm clock felt alive, like it was breathing, watching me back. By the third day, I stopped trying to sleep. When I closed my eyes, I'd see her face again, illuminated by that impossible glow. Each time she was closer. Each time I'd wake up whispering the same words: click, flash, look at me. That's when they started appearing. At first, it was one man standing across the street, just standing there under the streetlight, his face tilted upward, eyes wide. He didn't move for hours. Then another joined him, and another. By the end of the week, there were 5. They didn't talk. They didn't leave. They just waited. Sometimes I'd catch one of them outside my window, staring in with that same expression, the one I'd seen on the road. That was when I realized it wasn't the box calling me back. It was them. I didn't fight it for long. I packed my flashlight, a bottle of water, and started driving. The roads were empty, every turn a ribbon of black glass reflecting my headlights. My reflection in the windshield looked sick eyes, hollow skin, gray lips, cracked. I didn't feel like myself anymore. When I reached County 32 again, I wasn't alone. There were cars pulled over along the shoulder, dozens of them, stretching down the road into the mist. Their hazard lights blinked in perfect sync. Every flash illuminated a figure standing beside a car head, tilted up eyes, wide and shining. And there in the field beyond the ditch was the crowd. Hundreds of them, packed shoulder to shoulder in the rain, their faces turned towards the center, where something tall and black was standing. The box. Except now it was larger, mounted on a kind of metal stand, its lens glowing faintly, like an eye adjusting to the dark. A woman stood beside it, the woman. Her hair hung wet against her face, and her lips curled into that familiar, impossible smile. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. When her eyes met mine, I felt peace. A terrible, perfect peace. You came back, she said. Her voice carried easily through the storm, even though she barely raised it. You've seen what waits inside the light. I wanted to speak, but all that came out was a whisper. What are you? She tilted her head. A messenger. Like you will be. Then she began to turn the crank. Click, click, click. The sound rolled through the field like thunder. The crowd swayed in unison, their bodies bending and straightening to the rhythm. The light from the box brightened each flash, slower, heavier, cutting the world into fragments. My heart started beating in time with the clicks. My breath followed. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was home. When the light reached its brightest point, she stepped aside. Behind her, a figure emerged, tall, thin-skinned, white as glass. It moved like smoke, made solid, every motion graceful and wrong at the same time. Its face was featureless, except for two black hollows where eyes should have been. The crowd gasped as one. Some fell to their knees. Others whispered words I couldn't understand, hollow sounds like static given shape. The figure raised one hand, palm outward. The rain stopped mid-air. The lights froze mid-flash. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then slowly, the creature turned its head toward me. Even from 50 feet away, I could feel its gaze. It wasn't looking at me. It was inside me, sifting through thoughts, memories, fear. And in that silence, I understood something I wish I never had. The box wasn't a machine. It was a doorway. The light didn't show what was out there. It let what was out there see you. The woman smiled again, her voice a whisper that brushed against my ear from across the field. Do you see it now? My legs moved on their own. I stepped forward, one slow step at a time, toward the pulsing glow. The others parted for me, their heads turning to follow as I passed. Each click pulled me closer. When I was only a few feet away, the woman reached for my hand and pressed it against the box. It was warm. Too warm. Look, she said, and I did. The light poured out white and endless, swallowing everything, the rain, the field, the faces, the sound. It filled my lungs, my veins, my skull. For one moment, I saw everything. A million lives, all staring back. A million voices, all whispering the same thing. Look at me. And then nothing. When I opened my eyes again, I was alone. The field was empty. No cars, no people, no lights. Just the whisper of rain. But when I looked down at my hands, I saw the faintest glow beneath the skin-white veins, pulsing softly in the dark. And somewhere behind me, faint and rhythmic, I heard it again. Click, click, click. When I came to, I was lying in my truck again. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick, wet, suffocating heavy, like the world had just finished holding its breath. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel, and for a second, I thought the glow under my skin was just the reflection of the dashboard lights. It wasn't. Even with the engine off, my veins still pulsed faintly white, like tiny filaments flickering beneath the surface. I could feel the rhythm deep in my chest. Click, flash, click, flash. I tried to steady my breathing, but every inhale made the light pulse brighter. Every exhale made it fade. Something was alive inside me. By the next morning, the news had already started to spread. Reports of unusual gatherings along rural highways, people standing motionless by the roadside, staring at emergency vehicles, eyes unfocused. Some were farmers, others truckers. A few were families found in their front yards, long after midnight, gazing into porch lights that had long burned out. I knew what it meant. The light was spreading. Whatever had come through that box, It was moving from one person to the next, through sight, through memory, through attention. I stopped answering my phone. I shut off the power to the house. For days I lived in darkness, wrapping the windows in garbage bags and duct tape. I ate from cans and kept a knife under my pillow, though I didn't know what good it would do against something that wasn't flesh. But the silence didn't help. It followed me. Sometimes at night, I'd see flashes even in the dark. Not from outside, from behind my eyelids. My heartbeat sinking to a sound I couldn't escape. That rhythmic clicking, steady and patient. Then came the knocking. 3 sharp raps on the front door. I froze. The sound came again. And again. I crept to the window, peeled a sliver of plastic away, and saw them standing in the yard. 4 of them. Their faces were blank pale. The rain made their skin shine. One of them was the woman. She raised a hand and pointed toward the house. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her voice in my head. You can't hide from the light. I stumbled backward. My heart pounded in my throat. I could see the faint glow under her skin, same as mine. The same pulse. It wasn't just in me. It was me. I grabbed my keys and ran out the back door into the woods behind the house. Branches tore at my arms as I ran, the wet leaves slapping against my face. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to get away from the lights, from them. But when I finally stopped gasping for breath, I saw a familiar glow between the trees. Headlights. A dozen cars parked haphazardly in a clearing. People standing in the rain, waiting, watching. At the center of them, a single object on the hood of a car, black square and humming softly. The box. It was smaller now, almost handheld, but I recognized the shape immediately. The lens faced outward, the crank turning on its own this time. The rain hissed as it hit the warm metal. Click, click, click. The crowd swayed to its rhythm. Some cried, some smiled. All of them whispered the same word, home. I crept closer through the trees. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely grip the branch I was using to steady myself. Every click made my vision twitch. My pulse fought to match the rhythm. That was when I saw her again, the woman from the first night standing beside the box. Her face was brighter now, the skin almost translucent veins, like white roots under glass. She looked up, right at me. I told you, she said softly, her voice floating through the clearing. You were chosen to carry it. I don't know what snapped inside me then. Maybe it was rage, maybe fear, maybe the last sliver of human instinct still clawing to survive. But I stepped out of the trees soaked and shivering and shouted, You did this to me. She smiled. We did this for you. I raised the flashlight in my hand like a weapon and flicked it on. The beam cut across the clearing, and every single person turned to look at it. Dozens of faces lit from below, all gasping in unison. Their eyes reflected the light like mirrors. The clicking grew louder, faster. The box began to pulse wildly. I pointed the beam directly at it. The crank spun faster and faster, the flashes growing violent, blinding. Then something in me snapped again, a clarity sudden and cold. It wasn't alive. It wasn't divine. It was a parasite, and I'd been feeding it. I dropped the flashlight, lunged forward, and kicked the box off the car. It hit the ground with a metallic crack. Sparks sprayed from the lens. The crank whirred uselessly, spinning faster and faster until it broke. The crowd screamed high, inhuman, overlapping. Their mouths opened wide, but no sound came out, just light. Blinding white light pouring from their throats, their eyes, their skin. The woman staggered toward me, her face twisting, her voice shrill and distant. "You can't stop it. It's part of you now." I grabbed a fallen branch and swung it, striking the box again. The lens shattered. A searing beam of light burst upward into the sky, splitting the clouds for an instant, then vanished. The world went still. The woman collapsed to her knees. Around her, the others crumpled one by one, like puppets whose strings had been cut. The light drained from their bodies, leaving them pale and still in the rain. I stood there for a long time, staring at the ruined box. Smoke rose from it, thin gray and faintly blue. Then, from deep inside the metal, I heard it. One last click, and something inside me answered. When I looked down at my hands, the glow was gone. But I could still feel the pulse, soft, rhythmic, hidden somewhere beneath my ribs. Click, flash, click, flash. I thought I'd destroyed it. I was wrong. It's been months since that night. Sometimes I can convince myself it's over, that the light burned itself out, that the box died in the mud where I left it. But then, something happens. Something small. A camera flash at the grocery store. The blink of a car's turn signal. The rhythmic flicker of a dying bulb. And it comes back. Not the light itself. Not yet. But the feeling. That familiar warmth crawling up from somewhere deep inside, coiling behind my eyes, pulsing under my skin, like it's waiting for me to give in. Click, flash, click, flash. I know what it means. It's still in me. After the clearing, the police found me wandering a few miles down the road, soaked and barefoot. They said I'd called 911 myself, though I don't remember dialing. They found the bodies too, or whatever was left of them. The official report listed it as a chemical exposure event. The coroner's notes were sealed. The photos, God help me, showed what I already knew. Every single one of them had gone blind. Their eyes were burned black, the sockets slick with something that looked like melted glass. They said there was no sign of the device I described. The box. No metal fragments, no lens, no residue. But they found one thing. A stop sign. Standing in the center of the clearing. New, red, perfectly clean. No road nearby, no post hole. Just standing there in the mud. And across its face, written in white, were the words, "Look at me." They let me go after a few days. Survivor trauma, the doctor said. But the way he looked at me told me he didn't believe a word of it. I didn't argue. They gave me medication, sleep aids, pamphlets for group therapy. I threw it all away. Pills can't stop what's inside you when it isn't human. At night, when everything goes quiet, I still hear it. That gentle mechanical rhythm, like a heartbeat. I don't control. Sometimes I'll wake up standing in front of the window, my hand resting on the curtain, ready to open it. My pulse hammering in sync with something outside. It's always the same thought, whispering in the back of my mind. Just one more look. But I don't. Not anymore. Because I've seen what happens when you look too long. I thought maybe distance would help. So I moved, sold the house, sold the truck, bought a place 3 states over. No neighbors, no streetlights. The kind of silence you can feel pressing against your skin. It worked for a while, until last week. I was driving home from town just past midnight when I saw the reflection of a stop sign ahead. The shape of it glinting red in the high beams made my stomach drop. But when I got closer, I realized it wasn't on the roadside. It was in the middle of the lane, and someone was standing beneath it. A woman. Her hair hung wet against her face. Her arms were limp at her sides. And when she looked up into the headlights, her eyes caught the light like mirrors. For the briefest moment, I thought it was her, the same woman, the one from the field. But then I saw the color of her jacket. It was mine. She smiled just a little and lifted a small black box from her hands. The lens glowed faintly in the dark. I swerved and drove past her without stopping. I didn't look back. But when I got home, I saw something on my front porch. A package, small, square, black. No return address. I haven't opened it yet. It's sitting there a few feet away, humming softly. Every now and then, I hear it click so quiet, I could almost believe it's the house settling. Click, click, click. I know what it wants me to do. And maybe someday when the silence gets too heavy, I'll give in. Just once more. Just one look. They say curiosity kills the cat. But in this case, it only took a glance. The black box is gone. Or maybe it never existed at all. Yet out there, somewhere in the dark, there's always another flash, another person who can't look away. Maybe tonight that person was you. If you ever see a box like that, don't touch it. Don't look at it. Don't even think about it. Because once the light finds you, it never truly lets go.